Welcome, everyone. I'm your host, Dennis Pierre. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Locker Room. I'm your host, Dennis Pierre. In today's episode, I want to attempt to define the meaning of fatherhood and how important it is to us. A few weeks ago, I ran into an old friend, and upon talking, she asked me if I was married and if I had any children. And I told her I wasn't. I wasn't married and didn't have any kids, despite having a ring on my left hand. And her follow-up statement was, "You would be a great father." And it got me to thinking. I thought, like, what did she see in me? And how did she know I would be a good father? So I know some really dope dads. I know some really dope fathers. But one in particular kind of stuck out for the most part, which is my guest today. First of all, I don't think he doesn't even look old enough to be a dad. That's the first thing. And then when I heard his conversation with him and his son, it seemed like a brother, like his little brother. It didn't seem like a son type of relationship. We continued to talk, and he told me about their travels and where they were going. And he saw some places that I couldn't even imagine going with my pops. It was super, super dope. Hint, the motherland, which I loved. But without further ado, I would like to introduce my guest, my good friend, Father of the Year, Adam Grant.
Amazing introduction. My guy. Pleasure. Thank you for having me, man.
No doubt, baby. No doubt, no doubt. So let's just dive right into it. What is your definition of fatherhood?
Wow. When we talk about fatherhood, a lot of what I try to do in my fatherhood is debunking all the myths. You know, there's a lot of myths in terms of absenteeism, whether it's because of mental health, incarceration, a gamut of things which has kept our fathers from not being around, and some of which you and I probably grew up seeing. I think I wanted to be very intentional, mind, body, and soul. So every activity, every exchange, energy, time that I have with my son, that's the focus, right? And we want to make sure that we're developing or birthing a young person that's going to become a man, right? And then for the young ladies, for the fathers that are what we call the girl dads, we want to make sure that they understand what it means to be loved. They understand what it means to achieve their greatness in life. So we're fostering mind, body, and soul, simply put.
I love that definition. Much expanded from my definition. My definition of fatherhood coming up, obviously I don't have any children, but based on my father was just basically to provide.
Yeah.
My pops wasn't really around when it came to like games and homework and all that stuff. But he did provide a house for us to stay in, and always gave my mother money from my understanding. But that's kind of where it stops. Right. So I love the fact to hear that you changed it around. And me personally see it, not just hearing it. Seeing that you changed the dynamic, made the shift and being there, not being an absentee dad and being there in the development of your son. Yeah. So again, super commendable, super commendable.
I appreciate that, man. I appreciate that. Thank you.
No doubt. So again, everybody, you look like you're about 28. I give you on a good day. I give you on a good day. 35. I give you on a good day, right?
When the sun hits the right angle, right?
Yes. I give it to you, right? I know you had some challenges in fatherhood.
For sure.
Any experiences or anything you would like to share about the difficulties in being a young father?
Yeah, I mean, right off the top, I think we got to start first with the other half of being a father, right? So co-parenting in particular, whether you're within the household or not within that nuclear household structure, right, is probably the most critical, right? So first thing that I talked about is mine, right? So the ideal situation is a situation in which obviously both parents are, within that household. My son and I, we do not have that dynamic, right? So one of the most important things is maintaining, preserving, celebrating, and honoring a relationship that is healthy and puts him at the center with his mom, So I think when we talk about challenges, it's just that intention, right? We want to make sure that as fathers, we're doing everything to respect that mother. We want to make sure that we're doing everything to honor them and really almost set an example for our sons and our daughters in terms of what is expected in terms of that, family structure. Very important, very critical. Challenges.
Yes, yes.
We talk about challenges.
That is a
I'm
challenge.
in it now.
That is a challenge. That is a challenge because that dynamic was the opposite in my household. I was kind of the wedge between my moms and my father. Like, they couldn't get it together. They could never be in the same room together. So if Pops picked me up and I had to go to his house, like I kind of had to meet him outside because my moms didn't want to see him and she didn't want to see my mom's. It was a crazy dynamic. And I remember constantly always saying that I wish y'all would get it together for me.
Yeah, just for
like
the child,
whatever issues y'all got, that has nothing to do with me. So to hear the dynamic that you have with your son's mother is super dope.
It's critical, right?
Very critical.
It's critical. Obviously, I'm in the mental health profession, so it's so critical in terms of, again, ushering that young person into the world. Allowing their mind to be expansive, allowing them to be the best version of themselves, and then allowing for the unit, right? So that's myself as well as his mom to be in a situation where we're supporting, but we're supporting from a healthy perspective. So critically important. You mentioned something earlier with your dad, about like it really being like a very transactional,
Yes.
and I don't want to put words in your mouth, but like that transactional relationship is historically what we know about dads, right? And I love the society and the culture that we're in right now where we're just way more cognizant, right, about traumas and all the things that we once considered to be stigmas and taboos, within our culture, within our community, right? We're now putting those things out there. So I think about obviously historically what slavery did in our community, but you have books such as Patrick Moynihan's Moynihan Report, right? Which talked about the Negro family, right? And that structure. And we really do have systems here in America, right? This beautiful land, right? We have these systems that have perpetuated the disjointed nature of our families, right? You look at systems such as the welfare system, right? And what that did, right? So now you talk about your dad, right? And this person that was a provider, right? Did all the things that was needed, right? The intangibles of what it meant for you to be able to have a roof over your head and food in your stomach. That now he has been stripped of because there's a system that has now been implemented. So the challenge or what I consider as I started off talking with you, I always look at it as a challenge, right? Because we do have systems at play. We don't want to be crippled, and we don't want to refer to those systems as things that we make excuses for, but we want to try to debunk it, we want to challenge it, and we want to try to, make sure that we're showing up for the people that will carry on our legacy.
Right. And I actually think it's important to acknowledge it.
Absolutely.
I think a lot of people don't believe it exists or don't even understand that it exists.
True.
Some situations, again, people came up in, bad situations, which doesn't allow you to research, take in more knowledge, understand the things that's going on. But again, one of the reasons why I wanted you up here is to debunk those things because, I've seen so many people, as you say, I'm a mom, dad. I don't know if that actually exists. I know a lot of people who would use the children as a vice, as a, if you don't do this, you don't do that, you're not going to see your child. And like you said, those systems that are set up to purposely keep the families apart. And I wanted to make an example of showing families that stay together, even if the relationship is not there. Does not mean you're not a family. Y'all are a family. Y'all are a unit forever. And I wanted to make it. I wanted to keep showing that, as much as possible and keep talking about it as much as possible. So again, I'm glad I got dope friends such as yourself,
brother,
that I can easily make a phone call and say, come on, let's be discussed.
Each one teach one, man.
Exactly.
And it's hard, you realize that the world that we live in right now, it doesn't really support the notion or the idea of family, right? You look at this Western world that we're in, it's very much an individualistic society, right? When we think about education, think about career opportunities, I have friends, I even have family that are taking opportunities abroad. And then secondary to that is this idea of family. We circle back to it because we've been, trained, and part of our culture is to just make sure that we're educated in what is going to be the thing that allows us to thrive in society. And oftentimes that the balance, there's an imbalance in terms of us wanting to give priority to family. So it looks different, right? There's no rules in terms of what family looks like. But I think just making sure that the young people that we have in those units, right, whether it's the nuclear household, whether it's the blended family, and every variation in between and around that, we want to make sure that we have an idea as to what life lessons, mind, body, and soul that we're creating for, our legacy, really, for our children, And I look at you. Yeah. Go ahead, brother. Yeah.
See, I love that. I love that word legacy. Because in my mind, again, I don't have any kids. I always thought, because again, I'm looking at my father, I always thought I had to get to a certain amount of money, I had to have a certain amount of wealth, I had to be in a certain position in order to even do that, right? So I never even thought about it as a legacy. So I'll actually be 47 this year, which is crazy.
Looking good too, bro.
Thank you, I appreciate it. No doubt.
On that.
But I was like, wow, like at 40, about to be 47, I never even thought about being a father. Because in my mind, it was so transactional, and you had to just do this. You had to be at this certain point that I never even thought and considered anything else. So when you say legacy, that's one of the reasons why I wanted you to come up here, because I started thinking, what is my legacy? Like, what will it be? Now, I do believe you can have a legacy outside of your children, for sure.
Absolutely.
But lifeline and bloodline, where's that going to end up? When I started thinking about it, made me a little nervous. But good thing is I got time. And,
Absolutely.
I got my health.
Yeah.
So far.
Absolutely.
So.
Your namesake, right? And so I'm going to challenge what you're saying. Your namesake in of itself, I think it presents opportunity for legacy. Right. I think legacy sometimes it gets punctuated when we do have children by that birthright, of our son or of our daughter, and I'll be honest with you. I prayed. I prayed that the first one, and God has only blessed me with one so far, right? But I really wanted it to be a boy, really, again, for that namesake. And I think what's so important is everything that you do. So this is your, right now, like if I may, like right now, what you're doing right now is everything that you're establishing to transition your youngster into the world and understand what his or her dad has done and all the trailblazing. I mean, look at where we are right now. Look at what you're establishing right here on this beautiful platform right now. This is your namesake. This is your legacy. And then again, we just take it to another level when we allow, our youngsters to come up behind us, when we birth them into this nation. It's a beautiful thing, man. But you got that. I want to let you know you got that right now.
Appreciate that, brother.
Legacy's happening. Real time.
That, brother. Yeah. So, like I told you, I remember the conversation. I believe we definitely out the country. Definitely out the country. And I remember having that conversation where I thought you were talking to your younger brother, which happened to be your son. Is there any milestones you could think of as being a father? I think about those moments of the first steps and first words and data. But what for you was a milestone that you could think of? Or share a few, if you would.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with the traditional. I think for me, a lot of people don't know this, right? But my son, there was a procedure that needed to happen because there was an umbilical cord around his neck during birthing. And very emotional time because part of what needed to happen in the labor room was a procedure that unfortunately allowed him to sustain pretty much a broken arm. The femur bone in particular, was broken, right? And I remember just praying, and just hoping for something to, wake me up out of this nightmare, right? Accepted it, again, continued to pray on it, and I realized that obviously because he's a baby, the body is just naturally gonna fuse the bone, and you learn about all these beautiful things about the human body at that particular point in time and the science. And I'm Shout out to the doctor, Dr. Michael. But what he was essentially able to do is put like popsicle
Okay.
and pretty much like sleeve that bone fused, and he was strong. He was strong as an ox. So when I think about a milestone, I just remember him not having access to the arm for a very long period of time. Obviously, you know, everything is growing, he's developing. And then when he was able to literally lift himself up,
Nice.
oh man, that was everything.
I can imagine.
You know, and we're sports
yes.
guys, you know. So that was everything. And you want your children to come out and have a fair start at life. Right? We know what our complexion presents to society, but you want to be able to have them on that even playing field, just to compete in society, just to be present in society, just to thrive in society. And having that was an amazing moment. And I'm looking at the arm, and I'm like, hold on. But, you know, natural baby instinct, you know, so that was a huge milestone. And for many, they just take it for granted, you know. So that was a big moment. Of course, data, you know,
Yes, okay,
daddy,
okay.
every variation of that came out. And I want to make sure everybody knows that was his first utterance of a world. No training, no coaching.
That's a natural thing.
Yeah, you know, just I guess how it rolls off the tongue. But I remember, you know, I have a very fond memory of like a series of lessons riding a bike. Oh, man. And, you know, riding a bike, it comes with some cuts, scrapes, bruises.
Yes, a lot of falls.
Oh, man.
A lot of falls.
So that was for sure like a huge, huge one. I remember we went up this really tall hill, you know, and I go back to my childhood. That's how I learned to ride a bike, right? And I got some marks all over my, you know how we grew up. So I got marks all over my body, sustaining all kinds of injuries. And so right now, I think that was such a huge milestone, you know, just because I remember it was the training wheels that lasted and lived for maybe about a week or two. And then boom, you know, we were on bikes, you know, and it was all courtesy of just him being courageous. But it's the conversations.
Okay.
You know, it's about having the courage. It's about being fearless. It's about wanting that end product. It's about really having that vision. And to be able to train, to be able to coach through every single fall, right? And then finally get that continuous pedaling, and then later on be in a position where we're, you know, riding bikes up the Belt Parkway. You know, we're doing the more expeditious things and riding bikes here in the city. You know, you fast forward over the years, where riding bikes in PA near Waterfall, you know, we're just having all these experiential moments, courtesy of a moment that took place so long ago. I think I would have to give a nod to that being, you know, a milestone for sure.
That's super dope.
Yeah.
I didn't have a ton of experiences with my pops, but the ones I did have, like you said, I remember them so vividly. I remember going to Yankee Stadium. He was a big baseball fan, so we used to always go to Yankee Stadium. Sometimes we used to go to Baltimore when they played Yankee Stadium, Baltimore, you know, be in the stadium.
Go to the Orioles.
So yes, I do remember those. I also remember he never told me how to ride a bike, but I did almost body us on the BQE.
Oh, wow.
Teach me a lesson. You know, it's fun too. I'm not gonna lie. Now that we survived it, I didn't know that you had to look upon oncoming traffic,
right?
Getting on the highway. So I kind of just
safety
you just
first,
gotta speed up and kind of go.
Right.
So those are two experiences I remember with Dad. That was I will never probably forget.
Yeah, man.
And always laugh. So yeah, those experiences are everything. Those memories are everything.
And it's crazy how those things, they stick with you for a lifetime. You know, come part of your coat of armor.
Now, those are the good experiences. Any experiences of discipline when little man wasn't acting right? And you had to step up to be a pop.
You know, we go back to the relationship, right? That relationship that you have, you know, be it the mom with the dad, right? And the honoring, the praising, the respect, right? And the acknowledgement, right? As the other half to this beautiful child, right? There was definitely a moment. There was more than a moment. I think, every youngster, right? They get to this place where, they're autonomous, they're developing their own agency. It's just, and you test limits, right? And I wanna set the record straight. Very Aiden, very respectful young man. Very proud of how respectful he is. But I think for him, there was a small period where he was just challenging, right? He just wanted to challenge.
Gotta come,
right?
gotta come see on. Gotta test the pride.
Right.
Gotta test the pride, boys.
When we used to challenge, we knew what the outcome of that looked like, right? It's different times now.
Yeah, very different. Very different.
Right. So he was challenging his mom, right? She had a conversation with me surrounding, what those exchanges looked like. And I'm summarizing and putting everything sort of in a nutshell here, but it was just challenging moments, right? In the household, there are certain things that you should be doing. You don't need any prompting of any sort to do those things. And if you do need that reminder, don't talk back, right?
Especially don't talk back.
Right, just receive, right? And I don't think it was terribly rude, but it was just off key for him. And we just had to have a conversation. I think that generationally, I think the fathers of today, I think, and even back in the day, right? We want to be in a position where we're having more conversation. It was a lot of I told you so when we were growing up, right? And then when we think about our analytical skills, our ability to reason, right? The things that really create fields and professions, such as being a lawyer, right? The ability to have argument, right?
Yep.
Like we cut that ceiling off with the I told you so that we grew up with, right? So I wanted to make sure that we had the conversation, right? And in the conversation that I had with him surrounding that, we talked about expectations. We talked about, him having that role as man of the house. You should be wearing that as a badge of honor. You should be wanting to do that. You should be salivating at those opportunities to do these household chores. And you really don't need to be, reminded. And he looks at me and he says, yeah, I know, but I just wanted to, I wanted to talk myself.
Yeah, you gotta touch it. You got to.
I just wanted to talk, And that comes with the physical stature. Right now he's sitting at about 6 feet, close to 6 feet right now. So, but with that presentation comes responsibility. And so, yeah, that was a huge moment. Because it was a series. It wasn't one isolated. I think it was a lot of precipitating events that led to that one moment, and we were able to. Yeah.
So I know you understand. I don't know if my audience understands the importance of that.
Yeah.
I have a ton of situations, including myself, where there was no male guidance to be there to have that conversation. So a lot of times, our mothers use force.
That's right.
For us, hit us, beat us. Wasn't malicious, but that's what they thought they had to do. Because we were men, because we were getting stronger and bigger and so forth and so on. A lot of times later on, and this is unfortunate, but because I know so many people that were in the street, went in and out of jail, when you hear their stories, the stories start with them going to jail based on abuse. So they had a situation, they was going through something. It could have been a girlfriend broke with them. It could have been whatever the situation was. They acted up. They got a beating.
That's right.
They went outside and took that anger and frustration out on someone else versus being able to have somebody to talk to understand, right? And again, my sisters, I'm just not a bash on my sisters. My sisters do a great job. My mom did the best she could do, however, it's that time every once in a while when you need you need that deeper voice to be like, yo, listen, man, what's going on? What are we doing here? What are we thinking about? And even if you did mess up, hey, listen, it's okay. Let's not do this again. Let's learn from this and move forward.
And pivot.
And pivot versus having the alternative, which is the belt or some kind of physical discipline. Which again, I've seen a lot of people going down a bad path just because of that. Just
because
not
of
somebody
that.
to talk to. You know what I mean?
I mean, you know, you're raising an excellent point because it's like there's trauma in that, right? And it's learned behavior, but the trauma that we felt, right, and the thing that we felt that was going to be the remedy to whatever disciplinary action that we needed to take, we perpetuate that, right? And then what do we do now to the next generation, right? And so I love the idea, like I said, of just communicating, just talking. And sometimes easier said than done, especially when we know what we learned, you know, growing up. But that's the thing that I think begins to change the culture. It starts in everybody's household, starts with every son, daughter that you know is interacting with their mother or father. We have to make sure that we're doing that because, you know, we don't want to instill and create and repeat trauma, right? Because we all know what trauma leads to, right? It leads to a certain ideology. It leads to certain deficits. It leads to learned behavior that we continue. You know, so we want to make sure that they're not passing any unhealthy habits, which is hard again because it's things that we've been accustomed to and things that we've learned from our, you know, moms, parents, grandparents, you know, like it just goes on.
Go back to great
Right.
great grandparents, you know, with that trauma being passed down. We all know that trauma actually is passed down,
Absolutely.
you know, generation to generation. So yeah, it's all that learned behavior, and I love the fact that you're unlearning it.
That's right.
So speaking about unlearned behaviors and turning the curve, are there any solid traditions that you set up with your son?
Wow.
Anything that you do annually? Or I know you spoke about the bike rides.
Yeah.
Everybody knows I'm scared of bikes, so I'm not doing bikes, especially not in New York City. So I definitely admire you on that
you
one.
can't hear what you don't reveal, man.
Listen,
you just revealed it. Now
I tell everybody that. If it ain't got at least 2 doors, I'm not getting in it.
Right.
Sorry.
Right.
I'm good. But yeah, any traditions, any annual things that y'all do?
Sheesh, man. You know, like we're here, you know, this is beautiful Times Square, you know, so I think I can't really call it a tradition. I could talk about one tradition, but I think one of the things that we enjoy, you know, especially, you know, being a guy that grew up, you know, I grew up in Brooklyn, you know, I appreciate the other boroughs. I think just being a tourist in Manhattan, restaurant, you know, I'm a foodie, so I appreciate, you know, us just going out, be it with the family, extended family, or just he and I. He's put me on to certain spots. You know, we're in a TikTok culture now, so he'll put me on, and it works. You know, even though I'm pescatarian, vegetarian, you know, it still works out. But we try to have fun here in the city. I think one of the things, because we're both nature lovers, and hence the big trip that we have forthcoming to the motherland, we both are animal lovers. We both love nature, right? And it's probably not the coolest thing to say on the podcast, but we really will watch Animal Planet.
Listen.
You don't understand.
Please hold
the
your
volumes.
Hold your thought. I watch all wildlife stuff, like some of them building stuff in the wilderness,
all right, so
wildlife channels all day.
My man.
I just what was my last trip? I just did a 8-hour to Barcelona.
Nice.
And all I did was National Geographic.
Yeah.
The whole, like, so yes. There ain't nobody laughing.
All right, beautiful.
If they laughing, you know, I got you.
Right. No. It's all love. It's all love. But yeah, I think coming from that, you know, because of that natural love that we have, just fascination with animals. I mean, Wildcrats. I mean, the games, the iPad, you know, all of that he was invested in, and it was just a natural interest that he's had. Of course, he's into music, sports, but that natural interest that he's always had, you know, that made us frequent, you know, zoos, not just here in New York, but, you know, we're going to all the zoos in all the states, and we want to make sure that we have it be something very experiential, to now where we have that goal of, you know, making sure that we go to the Serengeti and, you know, hitting those places like South Africa, you know, just making sure that we hone in on some of those things that we saw. So I think we've been looking at different state parks.
Right.
And as a family, what we have done is we've actually done some hiking. Now, my first hiking moment, it happened before he was born, and I was out in California. Had an amazing experience, and it's one of those things where you can't knock it until you try it. Right. You told me back then about hiking.
Mm-hmm. Especially us city boys.
Right.
Especially us city boys. Like,
Heck no.
the heck out of here. Like,
well, I'm gonna say this. I'm gonna say this on the platform. You know, I'm a yardie. You know, so 100% yardie.
Oh, this is a little different. That's
It's
a
little bit different.
That's a little
You know,
different.
so with the complexities of that Jamaican lineage, you know, I do appreciate it. I'm a country boy at heart. You know, and so it was beautiful to see that he just naturally gravitated to this thing that optically could be considered boring, you know, like an Animal Planet, like just being immersed in nature. And so we've circled into that, you know. He did do, you know, he's done the hiking with me. And now we're in this position right now where we just, you know, we invest in like these nature moments, right? Like we love going to the beach, you know. We are beach junkies. You know, we are constantly at the beach. I don't know if that counts as tradition.
Absolutely.
But anything nature related,
Absolutely.
we're 100% tapped into it because we get so much stimulation. It's a beautiful reset, you know, for us to be able to, you know, do some exploration, nature, oneness, and then just relationship with God. You know, we want to make sure that, you know, we're honing in on that energy. So, yeah. Yeah,
piggybacking off of that, like you said, the city is there's always something going on in the city. Everybody that knows me well knows I wake up 3:30 in the morning. Part of that is to get the peace because the city is so crazy. Like once it gets active, it's active and it's
I love that, bro.
So going back to what you're saying about being in nature, whether it's the beach, hiking, you know, out in the woods, when I do travel, that's one of the things that I love to see the most is to see the families.
Same here, bro.
Families on the beach, families walking. Me and my guy, we just came back from Morocco few months back, and the dopest scene. It was old pops, old mom. You know, they probably was married 30-something years. The daughters were in college. The son was about to get married, and it just was a dope feeling.
And you could tell. It's tradition. You can see it.
This is what they do.
Right.
You know, after they eat, you know, and over there they still can smoke at dinner, which is, you know, whatever. So he put out the cigarette, start smoking. Everybody knew this is what dad does. Mom's had the coffee. Right. So it was super, super, super dope. I also remember one of my guests, Louis Cologne, he was on here probably week 3 or 4. I spent a lot of time with his family. You know, his mom's in Puerto Rican, so they had that tight traditional family. I remember eating dinners at the table. And just that small little thing that as a kid you may not think of as anything.
That's right.
It's something that he continued with his family, right? Yeah. So I can just imagine your son continuing this with his family as he gets older, you know, being in nature, finding peace, getting away.
You never know what you're instilling, right? And, you know, I'm fallible, right? I make mistakes. And I think that's perhaps one of the biggest lessons, you know, just resilience, you know. But you never know in your resilience or in, you know, you making those mistakes, how much lessons are being taught. You know, how much tradition is being given, being afforded to your kids just by virtue of you guys having this thing that you do, right? Every single morning, you know, we get up together, you know, we make sure either he's making breakfast or I'm making breakfast. We sit down, we eat at that table. We make sure that we pray before that meal. You know, like, you don't know. And so I appreciate you saying that because you never know how that ushers in the next generation, you know? So it's really dope.
Gotta end it soon. Yep. But before we do, one of the things we talked about I've always talked about on the show is having role models. Having somebody that you could look up to help you navigate your path, whether it's entrepreneurship, fatherhood, being a husband, you know, anything. Were there any examples of, you know, if not your own father, people that you saw coming up that you, or even in fatherhood that you saw, you was like, you know what, I like that. I would. Yeah,
I mean, I want to first talk about, I want to acknowledge a very similar relationship with my own father, right? Similar to that of yours. And while I have like super fond memories, you know, I'm a big, you know, I love my cars. I'm a big car person, right? And I think I want to give a nod to him for that, you know, just being around his cars, being around his bikes, I think that was something that I just had a fascination for as a little guy. And then now here in adulthood, being blessed to have, a fleet of cars and be in a situation where you're doing something that you're passionate about, you enjoy. So for sure for him, but I think there was definitely a strained relationship. And again, courtesy of, I think, a relationship between both he and my mom. But I think he made an attempt, right, to unwrite some traumas and certain things that potentially made him optically not the greatest person. And he is somebody right now to this day that, I feel blessed that I could have a relationship with. And what's interesting is that as you grow, right, there's so many things that you didn't understand when you were younger. But the conversations, obviously you're growing, you're maturing, you're learning, you're understanding, you're gaining perspective. But then there's conversations and answers that you need, right? And so getting that,
I didn't know that.
Right.
Yeah, okay.
That makes you grow in appreciation, right? Good, bad, and different in terms of those responses. You do appreciate just the human nature of it all, right? I have to give a shout out to Pastor A.R. Bernard, Pastor A.R. Bernard, Christian Cultural Center. He for sure has taken on mentorship role, right? At far, at near, for me. I think my first example, because I always look at, of course I'm in education, I always consider myself or the role that I want to have with youngsters and even peers, just an example, right? We know that role models, right? We've seen what happened recently to some of our role models, some of our heroes, right? America's dad. America's dad, right? Not just the black dad that we all knew, right? Some of our entertainment moguls, right? We see exactly what idolizing, creating an ideology of an individual, what it does, right? And we create this false expectation that, hey, they're not gonna make mistakes. There's somebody that I can, but what they really are is an example, right? And so some of the people that I look up to, again, I'm gonna mention Pastor A.R. Bernard again. Shout out to Pastor A.R. Bernard. I think that he himself has explained some of his real natural moments, his real mistakes that he's made in life, be it within his marriage, be it within certain decisions that he's made, even within his leadership. And I think those are people that I would say. That's an individual that I would say is probably at the top of that. And I mean, coaches, of course, we grew up in a sports world, so coaches, they were the first examples. And again, it's more about, of course, the off-court lessons.
Right.
So those were examples and mentors that I would say.
Super dope.
Give me
super
examples
dope, super
of fatherhood.
I need to put you in that list of role models. I think you will be a role model for some of my guests out here that's watching now and later.
I appreciate
Definitely
that,
a role model for me.
I appreciate
I'm assuming, I would have to assume some of our brethren that we usually
Absolutely.
know that don't have the offsprings yet. So
Absolutely.
yes, you're doing your thing. You're doing your thing. Before we close though, anything? Actually, I want to go. We got a few moments.
Okay.
I wanted to talk about what your current occupation is and what you do and what you're looking towards for the future.
Yeah. So my current capacity, I support school culture, right? Middle school, high school level, and in addition to that, also professor, right? Adjunct professor. And I think that right now, education has afforded me a beautiful opportunity to be uncle, to be even sometimes dad, and getting that reference, So if I want to be transparent, the whole reason why I got into education, as an educator, you always look to those summers off. Right. Haven't had a summer. Listen, I haven't had a summer off yet. We like to make sure that we expand the portfolio and we hustle. So I haven't quite had that, but I remember being so excited about fatherhood that I was like, I need to figure out a plan that's gonna allow for me to not be
That's dope.
on
Yeah.
this plantation
Yeah, that's dope. That's
and
dope.
create opportunities. So that's the thing that that essentially ushered me into education. And I never turned back, and I have zero regrets. I mean, so many opportunities and affordances. We love to travel,
Yes,
so
we
there's
do.
a time frame in which multiple times
Yes,
throughout
yes,
the
yes,
year
yes.
that we could be strategic on that as well.
Dope. Any projects in the future?
Yeah,
We're gonna do?
I mean, great question. I mean, I've talked about it here, but we have a lot of trauma in our community.
Yeah, yeah.
We got a lot of trauma, and I think right now we have a culture, we have a society that's embracing the importance of good mental health, social emotional learning, right? Like allowing for us to be the best version of ourselves inside so that we could make sure that we permeate that within society, right? And the best thing or the best space for me that I'm super excited about is just making sure that I do a full dive. And then we get comfortable in our occupations. But this will be an entrepreneurial endeavor. I'm excited. I'm stating it. I'm naming it. But it will be something that will start off with clientele, right? My niche and my particular population, I would want it to stay within community, in particular adjudicated and at-risk youth, young men, but not limiting myself, right? If the relationship is there in terms of therapist, client, I want to make sure that I'm supporting community, right, to the best of my ability. So excited about it. Thank you for the question. Really excited for that,
Excited for you, and of course,
Thank you, bro.
anything I could do, I can help.
Always, man.
I got a lot of
You family.
stories and experience in these New York City streets, so I could definitely help navigate some people in a different direction.
Hey, you my brother, man.
Always. Well, that's going to conclude it for this week. Next week, you actually know my guest. I got Vic coming up.
Hey,
Got my brother Vic coming up.
shout out to the faction.
Yes, there you go.
All
There
right?
you go. There you go.
My brother Vic.
Huge
All right.
shout out. So yes, thank you everyone for joining us in the locker room. This again, I'm your host, Dennis Pierre. Peace.